In December 2021, when the COVID-19 cases in the country dropped significantly, resuming in-person classes was in the plan of the Department of Education. Unfortunately, the sudden and rapid surge of the Omicron variant after Christmas abruptly put an end to the plan. So here we are again in early 2022, living with the Omicron surge and restrictions anew. But before they were enforced, FPVI gathered its students for an in-person retrospective discussion about the last 2 years of their learning arrangements. To our surprise, there were no timid voices. Instead, everyone was keen to speak up and express their opinions with a degree of openness not evident before. The students were quick and unanimous in saying they were tired of distance modular learning and losing interest in them. They said they are learning very little. On the other hand, the activities that FPVI organizes, virtually and in person, when allowed, encourage them to stay motivated. They continue writing their journals, making drawings, and creating art. FPVI also guides them in trying new things outside of what they think they can do. The last 2 video projects not only provided them with an enjoyable break from their school modules, but also allowed them to experience another avenue for learning. They also liked working together on module assignments in the FPVI Center, again when health protocols allow. Problems and burdens shared are problems and burdens halved, so these gatherings, infrequent they may be, also give them an opportunity to interact with FPVI peers in person. Global studies on the impact of the pandemic on school-age children have emphasized that the lack of in-person interaction with peers is one of the more important issues that young people struggle with, and the children in our care are no exception. From that early January gathering, the idea of Uswag was born. In Waray, our local dialect, Uswag means come in. It is a response to a knock at the door. Uswag is the first gesture of hospitality. Anticipating another lockdown and averting the loss of small gains and confidence building so far, we decided on making Uswag a virtual gathering, but with a different twist. Our Uswag will be impervious to rain, thunderstorm, or even power outage, our usual spoilers. It will allow the children to have an uninterrupted session with lots of laughter and without being anxious over interrupted connection. For this first Uswag session, each FPVI fellow interviews a person of a certain age about a theme of their choice. Make time to engage his or her interviewee in a thoughtful and unhurried conversation and ask questions. Older folks are a rich source of wisdom, of life experiences, and of humor. The interviews have opened to them a different world and a different time. The name Tunga figures in their stories. Tunga is the smallest town on the island of Leyte, where FPVI is based and where most of the fellows come from. Barangay is also often mentioned. It means village or barrio.
The chat room opened at 6:45 p.m. So far, we have 3 participants on board now. Angelo, Laika, Candy. Hello! How is everyone?
Excited!
I'm a bit nervous. I shouldn't be since this is going to be a fun session.
Yes, let's all remain cool. Gabby is here now, and yes, also Marquis and Manuel. All aboard! Okay, we can start. Good evening, everyone. As you know, it is my turn to host this first Uswag session today. Lucky for me, since this is going to be a not so serious session. But this is not to say that we will not be learning anything at all. Just because something is fun doesn't mean we aren't learning. We are just stepping back and experiencing outside the school mold.
Yes, outside the modules.
Right, and by the way, you have just met my co-host Manuel. We will do our best to make this an enjoyable learning journey for us all.
To begin, from our own homes. How much do we really know about our parents and our grandparents? They were young like us, a long time ago. Did it ever occur to us to make time and ask them, for example, what was it like growing up, going to school?
Yes, in fact, that is exactly what we're going to do. Share the answer to the question we got from them. We have made them happy with our interest and curiosity, and, at the same time, we discover from them stories that do not make sense to us today or may no longer be possible for us to experience.
But they will make us laugh, for sure. Let's start with Gabby.
Today's technology lets us write to and speak with our friends and families. Messages sent through text or chats are received right away, and responses are sent and received just as quickly. Then there is a new phenomenon called video conversing via an app, Messenger, Viber, WhatsApp, or Zoom. How was communicating done with family and friends many years ago? I asked my grandmother. She explained that they sent letters or telegrams which took a very long time to reach their destination. They could also go to the nearby town's telecom office to use what was then the community's single phone line. They had to fall in line, wait for their turn without getting an assurance of a successful connection. As a Gen Z girl, this is very difficult for me to imagine.
I heard an old story about a mother who sent a telegram from Manila to her son in the province, asking him to meet her at the airport. On arrival, the son was nowhere to be found because he did not receive the telegram. The next day, a delivery boy knocked at their door, shouting, "Telegram!" The mother opened the door and told the boy it now appears that she had sent the telegram to herself.
Also, a long time ago, they used to go to where the shared telephone was located. Now, the phone is in our pocket or hand, and we get to carry it everywhere we go.
True! And now, let's hear what Candy has to share with us.
Barangay Binibihan, where I live, is part of the town of Carigara, but it is closer to the town of Tunga in distance, so it is more convenient for students to attend elementary and secondary schools in Tunga. According to a popular myth, Barangay Binibihan was formerly called Kapalanugan. However, since there were a lot of beautiful ladies in the village, the name was changed to Binibihan. Binibini means young lady in Filipino or Tagalog. Of course, I could not disagree with that, but we are in Leyte and we speak Waray. So how come our barangay name is Tagalog derived? I asked my uncle, then went to the barangay hall where I consulted the barangay development plan. Yes, it is true. Barangay Binibihan was formerly called Kapalanugan after a plant called palanog, which grew wild in the area. Later, people discovered that a small river passing through the place had plenty of edible clams called bibe. Local folks started referring to the place as Ginbibihan, literally in Waray, where bibe can be gathered. Over the years, the name has evolved to Binibihan. The clams have disappeared, the name Binibihan remains, and the myth is still popular.
Very interesting account. It is good to know the origin of names of places.
Who knows how Tunga got its name? I bet Gabby does. She is good at this type of fact-finding exercise.
Thank you, Manuel. Yes, Tunga was once a barrio of Barugong. Before becoming a barrio, people from Ormoc, Carigara, Barugo, Haro, and Tacloban would trade with each other the produce from their farms and localities, and they would stop by or pass the time in this place. Because the roads were unpaved and transport was not so easy as it is today, people chose to meet at midpoint. Through their conversations, they concluded that this place was halfway between Ormoc and Tacloban, the two cities located on the eastern and western sides of the island. This place was also halfway between Carigara and Haro, two towns equidistant from Tunga from both sides. Since this place had no name at the time, people started calling it Tunga, the Waray term for one half. When it became a barrio of Barugong, the residents kept the name Tunga. The name Tunga remained when it became an independent municipality in 1949.
I never knew that.
Bravo, Gabby. Hannah, what have you discovered from your interview?
We live in Barangay Banawang, a village which is part of the town of Tunga. Banawang is where my mother grew up. The village school serving Banawang and nearby Pitugo was for grade 1 and 2 only. So for grade 3 to 6, pupils had to go to the Tunga Central School in the town proper. My mother told me that they would wake up early to start the approximately 1.7 kilometers walk into town at 6 a.m. Fortunately, all grade 3 to 6 pupils from Banawang walked together, so it was fun in some ways. The walk was through a dirt road and involved crossing several creeks at the Tunga River. On their way to school, they would stop to pick guava fruits which they bartered for writing paper with their classmates. At noon, they would go to the riverside to eat their banana leaf wrap lunches. After classes in the afternoon, they would walk the distance back home. Today, the Banawang Elementary School offered complete elementary grade level grade 6, and I am proud to say it was there where I graduated from grade 6. The road to Tunga is now paved, and the roadside are still lined with lush greenery and fruit-bearing trees, including guava trees. Motorcycle is the means of transport. Ironically, hardly anyone walks to town anymore with a much better road.
A very long walk, not for me, but yes, I like to know what it was like to have a river picnic every school day.
Now, we turn to Laika who will share with us a very special story.
It was an ordinary September day. Two pairs of eyes belonging to strangers met, and then the day ceased to be ordinary. That was how it started between my aunt and uncle. After a formal introduction, a daily visit by uncle followed. Aunt did not tell him that she did not like chocolates or flowers, and was curious how he knew, for he only brought different types of noodle dishes, seafood pancit, palabok, bami, during his daily visits. She took this as a good sign that he was the one. 3 months later, they got married, and a month after the wedding, he left to take on a job overseas. Uncle considered this temporary separation as a continuation of their courtship done through regular exchanges of letters and pictures. Several months later, she sent him a photo of her growing tummy, which made my uncle very happy. After finishing his contract, he decided to come home for good, to be around to take care of the son and my aunt. 26 years and 5 more children later, the courtship continues.
I must ask my parents about their love story.
A very special story, Laika. Thank you. Manuel, who did you interview?
I interviewed the big fish, Tay Tony. I asked Marky to be with me in case Tay Tony was not keen on the idea, but he was game. As caretaker of physical facilities of FPVI, Tay Tony also acts as father figure to all of us FPVI kids. The closeness we have developed with him has given me and Marky courage to ask him personal questions. Marky will continue.
Tay Tony told us that he was not very interested in school when he was young, so he made sure he learned to work with his hands. He spent many years in Manila taking on all sorts of work, learning new trades and honing newly acquired skills. Then, he returned to Tunga when he was 22. He met Nailanda, who was fond of going to dances in neighboring villages. She would tell him where she would be going on a certain days, and then he would follow her. 2 months after their first meeting, they eloped. We have 6 children and 1 grandson.
So there were dances then.
Excellent job, Manuel and Marky. And now, let's go to Angelo.
Since I was a little kid, I wanted to know how my parents started to build the happy family that we have. According to my mother, she met my father when they were in second year high school. They started as classmates, and through the enthusiasm of common friends, they began spending more time together and fell in love. When allowed, they would go for a walk and eat street foods, or my father would visit her at their home. When it was clear that neither of them could study beyond high school, they decided to ask permission from their parents to go find work in Manila. They ended up staying in the big city for almost 7 years. My 2 older sisters were born in Manila. They then returned to Chunga, got married, and built a house in Barangay Storga, where we still live as a close-knit family. My parents continue to work hard to ensure that me and my family are provided for comfortably. I am so thankful for my family.
Heartwarming story, Angelo. Thank you for sharing it with us.
No wonder you're a happy person, Angelo.
I had another interview. I asked my father about the games he played when he was my age. He said he did not have toys, so he played with empty plastic bottles. When he was alone or when with friends outdoors, they played sato, hide and seek, and patintero. Or they would go to the river to swim, returning home only in time for lunch. Sometimes they had so much fun, they would forget about lunch. To teach him a lesson for skipping lunch often, his grandmother sneaked to the riverside one day to get all his clothes. My father recalls running back to the house naked. He said that was very, very embarrassing.
That is so funny, Manuel.
Yes, we both had a good laugh after he told me the story.
Now, Marky has a bonus story too.
My mother did not consider herself beautiful, but she had many suitors when she was in high school. She wasn't keen on any of them though, because her heart was already taken by the man she had a crush on, the man who would be my father. Once at midnight, he came to serenade her. Her parents were not very strict, so they allowed her to go and see who was out there. She saw her crush, singing with a guitar. Who would ask her, "Will you be with me forever? I will love and take care of you." And so, the courtship continued. They would meet under a huge tree by the river. One day, she found him there, holding a bunch of flowers. They sat on the bamboo chairs, talked for a long time, and made a big decision before heading to his parents' house. He introduced his sweetheart to his parents and asked them to accept the girl he loves. Thereafter, they eloped.
Wow, what a love story!
Thank you, Marky, but don't get any ideas, Candy. Overall, this has been a very enjoyable time sharing our stories with each other.
Amazing stories!
I have more questions now than when we started.
Me too.
This was really fun.
Let's keep asking questions and gather new stories for our next Uswag session. Thank you, everyone. Great job!
Looking forward to the next one. Good night!
More lively chatter followed after the session, as they all felt delight and excitement at what they were able to do. Asking their interviewers simple questions led them to well-kept stories woven through memory and time, and made them realize how much they didn't know about their parents or close relatives. They were thrilled to have uncovered them, stories of love, friendship, and family ties, also of hardships and struggles. This interview project is quite new to the FPVI children, and most certainly new to their interviewers, who felt uncomfortable with some of the questions at first. In the end, they relented, then cooperated. To quote one parent, "Pastilan, waray ako kalibutan kay ano nga amo ito ng mga pakiana. Waray ito na pakiana ha akon hinsugad. Pero maupay liwat nga nagpirit, kay baga malipayon adto nga mga panahon bisan na iha na." The children's reaction? It is nice to know. Same line and context from Tevye and Goldie's "Do You Love Me, Do It" in Fiddler on the Roof. And it is nice to know that some of our attempts to stimulate and energize the minds of the FPVI children are succeeding.